Good day. My name is Dr. Paul Carter, talking to you from Bangkok, and I'm going to teach you a practical application today on a very important topic, cross-cultural communications. You sometimes see video or read articles on why cross-cultural competency is important, but now I'll take you through a day of cross-cultural miscommunication that you won't even be aware of. And then at the end of the video, I'll surprise you with explanations of what you actually experienced without even knowing it. Why is this especially important? Well, were you aware that most international business failures are ascribed to a lack of cross-cultural competency? Cross-cultural communication is communicating or interacting with someone from a different culture. You may well find yourself working or traveling overseas, and before you go, you need to absolutely ensure you read a primer on the culture you're going to. Cross-cultural miscommunication has been known to end up tragically. In 1999, NASA lost its $125 million Mars Climate Orbiter in a crash and burn because spacecraft engineers failed to convert from English to metric measurements when exchanging vital data between centers before the craft was launched. Here's a film of where cross-cultural miscommunication resulted in deaths. Luckily, it's only a movie, but it could have happened for real. In the famous 2009 Tarantino movie called Inglourious Basterds, a group of Americans whose families had come to the U.S. when they were children were impersonating German soldiers during World War II. The Americans spoke fluent German. They had come to America as Germans when they were children. This is a bar scene where a Nazi SS officer suspects the Americans may not be German, but he's unsure, and he finally decides to drop the matter, I think, and they all have one last drink. Watch and see what happens. Did you catch it? Let's watch one more time. Notice the German SS officer's reaction. So the American says 3 glasses, but a German wouldn't hold up these 3 fingers. Rather, Germans start counting with their thumb, as in 3 glasses. So something so seemingly small isn't small, and most of the characters die. Next, in 2019, a foreign military student at Pensacola Naval Base went on a rampage, killing 3, allegedly after being humiliated by an American instructor who publicly called him porn stash because of his mustache. Well, in his culture, facial hair is the norm. And whereas as Americans, we'd probably just laugh that off, in the student's culture, it was really insulting. And this is something that you need to pay attention of because people really can lose their minds. Now, I'm going to teach you cross-cultural communication techniques by illustrating one day in the life overseas. Okay, you're an American working in a foreign country. Could be anywhere. Burkina Faso, doesn't matter. You've been there, let's say a month. It's a large first world city, but lots of menial jobs filled by upcountry rural folk coming into the city. But you work with professionals, both American and host nation. Let's say you have a girlfriend. You wake up on a Friday morning, you're going to work, but before you go to work, you call your girlfriend. You dreamed last night when you were sleeping that she was cheating on you, so you ask her, "You don't have another boyfriend, do you?" To your horror, she replies, "Yes." Well, what a way to start your day. So, what you do next, you walk downstairs, you try to hail a taxi like normal to go to work. But every taxi is just passing you by. No driver will stop. You get frustrated, you end up taking the train. You finally get to work and put in a few hours before you and a colleague walk a few blocks to meet a potential business client at their business. Meeting scheduled for 11, the host is late. You're frustrated again. He finally walks in, your meeting begins. To further your frustration, rather than talking about business, he engages in this useless chatter with you and your colleague, just useless chit chat. Worse, he's asking how old you are, what school you went to, all kinds of personal questions. You naturedly follow along, and after 15 minutes, he's ready to talk business. You ask him about his manufacturing process, from obtaining raw materials to distribution of final product. He starts by talking about how his company manufactures a final component of one of the products. So he starts in the middle of the process. Then he talks advertising, then the fleet they hire to bring in materials. He's just all over the map on the processes of the manufacturing, and only briefly mentions, when he's almost done, about obtaining the raw materials. This is immediately a red flag for you, because he just glossed over the very first part of the process, obtaining raw materials, and only mentioned it at the end. As the meeting concludes, he asks you and your colleague if you'd like to join him for drinks. It is a Friday afternoon, time to close business a little bit early. Now, you don't really care for this guy. He was late, he asked all kinds of personal questions, and he glossed over key parts of the manufacturing process. You smile and graciously decline. He presses you. Surely you drink, he asks. You do, but on Friday afternoons, you tell him, you call your family back in the States. It's almost time to do that. No problem, he says. We'll give you some privacy. You can call them from an empty office here. Then we'll go out. Now you have a dilemma. How can you come up with a better excuse? You immediately respond that you would do that, but you use your little Samsung phone. At your condo, you can buy minutes from the local shopping mart. It's much cheaper than having an international plan on your iPhone. That's how you call. Yes, he responds. He understands. You exchange smiles and you go on your way. Well, you then return to work only to find out one of your team's all native country people disregarded specific directions you gave them for a project, and now the project will be late. You call them into the office and rather sternly ask them why they did not follow your guidance. You want their attention, but they seem distracted. It's almost as if they seem uncaring. Time to leave for the day. Company gets you and several others a taxi home, and the driver is rather erratic. A colleague of yours eyes the problem. She sees the driver has quite an extended fingernail on the small finger. Cocaine user. Were you aware many cocaine users in the U.S. grow an extended fingernail for ease? That's what I'm told on good authority. You arrive home, but before going in, you pop in at your favorite little local restaurant next door. You order your favorite dish, but tell them no rice, a staple that typically comes with every meal. You eat rice every day. You're tired of it. You finish, your bill comes, and your bill is more than normal. It's more than the menu price. You ask the waitress about this, and she says, you ordered no rice. Now, completely confused and beaten, you pay. And you go up to your condo, and when you get there, you sit down, pour yourself a Kentucky bourbon, review the terrible day you had. But in fact, you had a very good day. You just don't know it, because you fail to understand the environment and culture. Let's review. When you called your girlfriend in the morning and asked, you don't have another boyfriend, do you? And she said, yes, you didn't know she was saying, yes, I don't have another boyfriend. You see, many cultures and languages answer negative questions exactly the opposite as we do in the West. I know of an actual incident on Oahu where there was a petty crime on Waikiki Beach and the police were interviewing beachgoers, and they asked a group of Asians, you weren't involved in this, were you? And they answered very emphatically, yes. It took some time to clear that up. So find out how your culture that you've moved to or traveling in answers negative questions. Not everyone answers as we do, and trust me, this one will save you some trouble. Next, you couldn't hail a taxi. Why? Well, you were wearing that bright red tie, and you didn't know this culture has a lucky and unlucky color for each day. Today, red was the unlucky cover, and ain't no taxi driver gonna pick you up so you can splash your bad luck having tie all over his taxi. But wait, Dr. Carter, you told me this was a first world city. Well, it is, but I also told you that many of the menial workers come from upcountry into the city to work. And when they do, they bring their rural superstitions with them. You got to a meeting at 11 and your foreign business host was late. Understand, in some cultures, time is a tool to be used and bent at convenience. Meetings don't always start on time. Also, chit chat is quite common in many cultures around the world, and they believe it's important to feel comfortable with the person with whom they do business. The host asks you if you were married, where you went to school, how long you've been working with the company, other personal questions. If you're not very careful, you will give off a very agitated vibe in your interaction with him. But in fact, in hierarchical-oriented societies, these questions are the norm when first meeting. They allow the parties to establish the hierarchy of the individuals in the relationship so that the proper respect and deference can be given among individuals and that no one loses face. Now, you sense your foreign business host was deceptive about his business because you asked him about the business process from beginning to end, from top to bottom, but he starts in the middle and he jumps around and he finally ends briefly talking on the first step of the process of obtaining raw materials. You suspect there may be something wrong about the entire business cycle, particularly since he just poo-pooed the raw material acquisition. Well, what you fail to realize is that unlike time-oriented linear Western thinkers, his culture is one of associative thinking. Let me explain. If I ask you to tell me what you did today, most likely you will begin with events at the start of the day and stop with events at the end of the day. If I were to ask you about your vehicle accident, you would probably start with, well, I was driving along rather slowly, and then you work your way into the accident. You see, both of these answers reflect linear time thinking in that we start at the beginning of the event time-wise and conclude with the end. Associative thinking cultures do not think this way. They relay what may be the most important detail or event, and then they connect it with other important details or events. They don't tell a story time-wise linearly from beginning to end, or even process beginning to end. So the business host was explaining first the most important procedures in his mind. And in fact, the area you suspected might be a problem because he spent so little time on it, raw material acquisition, is actually the easiest and least problematic part of the process. So he glossed over it and left it to the last. Now, your white lie about calling your family was so brash and transparent, you're sure your host saw right through it. Well, he did, and he appreciates it because you saved him face. You could have just said no, but you constructed a really elaborate lie, a really elaborate scheme. You took a lot of effort to save face so that he would not be embarrassed. He really appreciated that. You're in very good standing. But you were disappointed in your team when trying to figure out why they didn't follow your advice. They wouldn't even look at you when you were making points. Let me ask you, as Americans, what do we do when we are lecturing our children? If they look away, we get even more agitated and say the famous, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Well, in some cultures, looking directly at the superior is a no-no, very disrespectful, and children are taught at a very young age to look away when being scolded. Otherwise, they appear to be challenging your authority. In this hierarchical society, your workers were deferring to you by not looking at you. That's how they were brought up. On your way home, the erratic driver has a long fingernail. Was he a cocaine user? I'll share a true story. I was in a small van with a Cambodian driver headed from Phnom Penh to Siem Reap, Cambodia, backcountry, and the driver was driving like a bat out of hell, which is often the norm. I thought he was a bit erratic, and the girl from California I was sitting next to said, "Look, he does cocaine. That's the problem." I said, "How do you know?" And she said, "Well, look, he's got this long fingernail. That's what cocaine users do to cut the drug." I replied that in Southeast Asia, it's actually an old tradition that many who do not earn their living from menial labor grow a long fingernail to signify just that. They are not menial laborers, and she was unaware of that. So, one practice, two cultures, two different meanings. Now later, you eat, you pay for your meal. It costs more without the rice than with it. Is that not crazy? Seems so counterintuitive. But in some countries, if you scrap the traditional side order, they give you a slightly larger main course, often not noticeable, but usually more meat, and as a result, they charge you more. Now you know. The lesson here is what is often counterintuitive is actually reality. So there's no substitute for cross-cultural knowledge. Finally, I want to refer you to a book a national bestseller called Outliers. In there, there's a chapter called The Ethnic Theory of Plane Crashes that details that many air crashes in the U.S. were determined to be a result of cross-cultural miscommunication with foreign pilots. It's an eye-opener. In closing, what seems logical is often not. I'm reminded of a comedian in the U.S. who says, "I'm not a vegetarian because I love animals. I'm a vegetarian because I hate plants." Finally, the reason you'll want to visit our website is because I do get into more detail on this negotiating topic. I provide information you're not going to find anywhere else. Check it out. I have blog articles on how to tell fake apparel from real, as well as similar topics that will interest you. Aranya Village Weave is more than just fabrics. We specialize in locally sourced, native-produced, authentic fabrics, artwork, and products found in this rich culture of Southeast Asia. So visit us at our website, check out the blog and products, drop us a message. We are always eager to hear from you. Sawasdee Ka.